Finally, start. Mr. President, it gives me great pleasure to congratulate you on your election as the President of this 50th session of the United Nations General Assembly, during which you will guide your discussions on what the future of the UN should be. May I also convey my thanks to your predecessor who, as it were, titled the ground which you will sow. A 50th anniversary is a climate trick, usually joyous but not necessarily so. In ancient India, this is around the time in a man's life what he would be expected to withdraw into a forest to spend the rest of his days in contemplation of past and future. It being the assessment of our ancestors that anything a man could usefully do, he would have done by then. No such drastic measures are needed for the UN, not least because it has spent much of its first 50 years mediating in a concrete jungle, and the shadow of the woods of loom over it. I do think, however, that as we celebrate, which we should, the UN's survival, we should judge what it has done and what it now needs to do. The UN system has remarkable success in helping to defeat colonialism and apartheid on social issues like universal health care and women's rights, and in banning through global non-discriminatory treaties 2 out of the 3 weapons of mass destruction. These are considerable achievements, but a clear pattern emerges from them whenever the UN has acted on principle responding to the felt needs and priorities of the majority of its membership. It has done well when it has pursued narrow agendas or succumbed to special pleading. It has not. If we were setting out tasks for the UN today, what would be the major trends and challenges we would accept it to address? Firstly, the international economy transformed the middle force, which global movement of trade, capital, and labor drawn by forces which can break developing economies. These are regulated if they can at all be in forums outside the UN, which is therefore marginalized in this most momentous of contemporary developments. Secondly, an opening up of political systems and democracy, the norm of national governance. The UN welcomes this, urges the change, but it itself is sped by undemocratic system and institution. Thirdly, the scourge of war increasingly replaced by the scourge of terrorism, which for the countries who sponsor it is war by other means. The UN set up to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war ignores it as the League of Nations to its fatal peril. ignored the threat of these are complex and titanic force. We therefore cannot accept either as a statement of fact or as a basis of policy the view that all this meant was that the days of absolute sovereignty were over. Sovereignty has never been absolute. Most members of the UN joined immediately after emerging from colonial rule with their economies destroyed and depend on foreign languages for communication, on imperial capitals for support, on donors for substance. This is hardly the stuff on which absolute sovereignty is built. Stuff.